Hello, everybody, and welcome back again to the Villa View. I'm still standing in for Dan Bardell for the moment, but thankfully, I'm not here on my own. I have the wonderful Omar as well joining me to chat today. We're going to go through match preview for the upcoming game against what I think a lot of people would call a resurgent Newcastle team. Omar, how are you doing? How are you feeling after? And we'll touch on it briefly, I think, because I think it'd be remiss if we didn't. But how are you feeling after Wednesday night?
Worn out, to be honest, mate. It was pretty hectic game. Yeah, it
You
was
were in
great.
the ground, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, it was. It was nice to be back, obviously, after a few weeks. And you could sort of sense the anticipation here. Obviously, it's been a while since we've been at Villa Park, and it was a great game. I mean, for the neutral, yeah. Just disappointed, really. Felt a bit like a loss. Even now, really, it feels a bit like a loss, to be honest. Considering we're 3-1 up, but that's Leeds for you. You know, they're a tough team to beat. I was saying, I know they're missing Bamford and Phillips, but I think they play the same way regardless of who's playing for them. You know, that's just the way they play. So it's always gonna be difficult, and they're always in it. It was good atmosphere. Their fans were good. Our fans were pretty good. It is one of those. At least we saw some goals, and Ramsey and Coutinho uh, gave us something to smile about at least. But yeah, there's definitely areas for improvement, isn't there? I think
Absolutely.
that's the key, and I'd be interested to see on Sunday how Stephen G changes the team up.
Yeah, and there will need to be changes, and I suppose that's where we're going to probably hit first. Obviously, in the game on Wednesday night, we had a red card, and Ezri Konsa is going to be missing for the next two games.
Mm.
I think that's what the case is at the moment. But that leaves us with the problem that we didn't really need to have at centre half, and obviously, Callum Chambers came on the last day, and I think it will probably be quids in that he's going to be the man who starts at that right centre back position on Sunday. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think House has done great when he's come in, but obviously he's a left centre back, and I think in terms of the way Gerrard wants to play, he'd prefer a right footer there to bring the ball out and playing between the lines and things like that. So I think he'll play Chambers. I mean, the fact that he brought him on instead of House on Wednesday probably gives you an idea. Although another idea I've seen mooted around is maybe bring House in and play Chambers as defensive midfield, which is another option. So I guess we'll see. But I'm pretty convinced that he'll play Chambers for Konsa, and I suppose for Chambers as well. You know, he's come in a bit out of the blue. It's a good chance for him to make a stake for himself in the team, and then there's still plenty of games left in the season. If he does well in those couple of games, Konsa hasn't, as much as we all love Konsa, and he's been one of our best signings in recent times and fantastic player. He's been off it the last few games, and that was again the case on Wednesday. So there's definitely a chance there for Chambers, I think.
I think Chambers is actually a pretty decent. Um, I was going to obviously he's a pretty decent show considering he's the only right-footed centre half that we have left in the squad. But when you look at the way their team is set up, obviously they're going to filter a lot of the ball through Anna and Sam Maxim, and the fact that Chambers has previous playing at right back as well. If we're caught in a situation where Sam Maxim comes in off that wing, and maybe, I don't want to be overly critical of Matty Cash, but he does get caught forward quite a lot. He does go forward, and we need him to go forward. I'm not saying that he shouldn't go forward because he's a very, very pivotal part of our attack. But when he does, being caught behind, if we have to filter into a back three with maybe a Dougie Louise kind of filtering coming back in towards the back three, Chambers being used to having people running at him in the likes of Sam Maxim is I think that could be a positive, that he'd be used to dealing with that and getting turned and turning around and not having the front players up in that aspect as well. So if he does go with the fact of playing Courtney House in there, maybe to front up to a Chris Wood, who is very much your battering ram type centre forward, and play Callum Chambers in that central defensive midfielder role, which I'm not quite sure I don't think that's really going to happen. But if he does do that, I could understand why he would do it as well, because Chambers will be able to filter over to that right hand side and give Cash that protection that I think we would like to see him get. Because as I say, this is a rejuvenated Newcastle team, as I mentioned previously, and we will get into talk about the Aston Villa team maybe a small bit more, but there's probably a bit more to talk about Newcastle. And prior to Christmas, they would have looked like easy pickings, I think, for us, and that's not being that's not being facetious, I think, about Newcastle, but they've brought in some good players. Obviously, they've brought in Bruno Guimaraes and they've brought in Chris Wood. Joe Linton looks like a rejuvenated player back in central midfield. So I suppose we don't really know what we're going to get from Newcastle, I think, this weekend, other than what we saw against Everton. And did you get a chance to watch that Everton game, or did you see anything from them there that would concern you?
No, I did watch that game, and I was impressed with Newcastle. To be honest, they pressed really well. They worked hard. The fullbacks played fairly well. Trippier in particular played well. Target had a decent game on his debut, and even the players, some of the players, underperforming players like Lascelles, who's obviously their captain, but has been underperforming a lot this season. Even he stepped up to the plate. So, they're obviously in a good mood, and we all know in terms of mentality, if you've got confidence behind you, how important that is in the Premier League. So, it's not ideal that we're playing him at this stage. We'd much rather play him before Christmas when they were struggling.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still think they've got a lot of weaknesses in their team. So, Target obviously won't be playing. So that's a potential big miss for them. Trippier's touch and go whether he'll play. And again, he was a massive player for them against Everton in particular. And the defense has always been troublesome, and they haven't really fixed it. So again, I think they've got areas there that we can exploit. Midfield, it'll be interesting to see if they play Guimaraes or not. I guess we'll see. I doubt they'll start him, to be honest. They put him on for the sort of last 5 minutes, didn't they, against Everton, and he did look decent. But again, I'll be surprised if he plays the full 90. So there's definitely areas there I think we can target. And going into this game, this is the kind of game we need to win. If we're going to do something this season and try and finish top half or even better than that, then we have to win, really, because Leeds was almost like a must not lose game, because obviously Leeds are not that far behind us, but now the teams we're going to play now, we've got a good run of games. I know there's no such thing as a good run of games in the Premier League, because it is the Premier League. That's it's difficult to get a run of wins in, but I think with these games coming up, we need to make the most of it. Our players, hopefully Bundy is fit, but apart from that, it looks like most of our players are going to be fit and ready to go. Maybe Bailey will be back as well, and hopefully Choro is not too far away as well. So we're going to have pretty much a fully fit squad now for these run of 4 or 5 games where we've got points there to be won, and we have to start. We haven't won Newcastle since 2005. That game where where Boyer and Dyer got sent off.
Fighting each other.
So, So we're due a win, really. So, and we should have won last year. Obviously, they scored last minute. So. This is definitely, I think it's going to be difficult, obviously, but I think we have to go full of confidence, and we have to try and impose ourselves on the game and try and win, trying to exploit their weaknesses, which there are many.
And it's interesting, we've mentioned that, or you've mentioned, should I say, Matty Target and Trippier may not actually start. And when we look through that team, I think they were the two big plus points that they've had coming out of the transfer window based on the Everton performance. So, the fact that they can't play is a big positive, I think, for us. From the fact that they have to go back to players that, that weren't really putting up trees prior to Christmas. So when we spoke about wanting to play them maybe prior to Christmas and playing them now, that still comes into play, specifically when we look at their back four. And with the way that, we're playing in the attacking positions at the moment, specifically, obviously with Coutinho and Jacob Ramsey, that's a good news story for us, because they might have to bring in Dan Burn at left back, then most likely play Manquillo at right back again, and they're guys that can be turned, they're guys that we can get in around and try and exploit. Before we go on and we talk, I suppose, a little bit about the Aston Villa team, just to let everybody know that there is a podcast partner with this podcast tonight. You can see it there in the bottom right hand corner. It is Boohoo Man. Using the code VillaView, you can get an extra 10% off all Boohoo Man menswear. That does exclude some sale and some selected items, but as I said, the code is there for you guys to use, 10% off. So pop on Boohoo Man and get shopping for some new clothes, and as I say, use the code VillaView for 10% off. So looking at the Aston Villa team, and there's a couple of enigmas, I think, and we've discussed the Chambers piece and the Konsa piece, because I think that's kind of one hole that definitely needs filling. But there's obviously places there whereby, there's potential for changes and kind of shuffling the deck. And we're going to start right up at the very top and move our way backwards, I think, Omar. Ollie Watkins. That's really my question.
No, it's the one in my head as well. we love Ollie Watkins. He's
We
been
do.
a breath of fresh air since he's come into the team. His work rate, his energy, his all-round ability, what he brings to the team. But he is struggling big time. And watching him on Wednesday there, he just he still presses and he still works hard. I think nothing that's changed at all. But some of the runs he used to make to get in goal scoring positions just aren't there. He's sort of, it's almost like he's double guessing himself. I don't know. He's just not quite where he was last year. And he's there was a key moment I think in the second half where Coutinho megs someone, goes through the byline, and he plays the ball in, a great ball, curling ball in. There's no one there, and Watkins has just taken a step back at the edge of the sort of the 18-yard line. And I'm just thinking, last year Watkins would either be trying to go near post or trying to get right in there. He's not going to do much at the edge of the 18-yard line, and that just sort of summed it up for me in terms of where his head's at. And it's definitely a confidence thing. We know he's got the ability. Maybe he needs I don't know what you think, but maybe he needs to spell out the team, bring Ings in, and just give him a bit more fire in his belly to say, look, you need to win your place back. I'm not sure. And also, I mean, I hate being one of these people that read too much into things because I see it all the time. But when we scored the goals in the first half, the last two, especially Ramsey's goals, Watkins's body language and the way he was, it didn't really scream of a player who's enjoying his football or enjoying playing. So I don't know what's going on with him. I'm not sure. I mean, I love him as a player. I'm just hoping he gets back to full form, but I don't know. Maybe, I don't know what you think, but maybe a spell out the team might be good for him.
I'm torn. I'm torn from the point of view that this game, I think, won't be the game where he is out of the team. And the reason I think that is because there's going to be two conundrums. Buendia may not make this game. He may still be injured. I think Coutinho plays. If Coutinho and Buendia don't play, Ollie Watkins definitely starts in one of those 10 positions.
Yeah, sure.
For me. But if Buendia is out, I think he'll play Watkins and Ings. I don't think he'll bring Carney in from the start. Now, that's just my own thought process and what I've seen from Steven Gerrard before. That's not me saying that Carney isn't able to start. So just want to get that clear. And for me, I think that's probably the right call to make to start this game, because Newcastle, as I say, are a resurgent. They are a team that are looking to take scalps, and they've gotten out of the relegation zone, and they've spent money. So, they're buoyant at the moment, and they're feeling themselves. They're feeling themselves as a team at the moment. And what we would need to do, I think, I would be happy to have Ings and Watkins up there just chasing them around. Obviously, score a couple of early goals would be fantastic. That would be great. But from the point of view of not letting them settle, not letting the likes of Dan Burn settle on it if he does start at left back. Manquillo, as I say, do not let him settle on the ball. You will get opportunities from him. And the further back that you can push the likes of John Joe Shelby and Guimaraes, if he does play, the better, I think, for Aston Villa. So I think that if Buendia is out, we definitely see Watkins in the team, regardless. But I don't think that this would be the game that he drops him for. If I'm torn, I don't know. I don't know is why, and the reason I'm saying it is because if you look back at that Leeds game, yes, he wasn't as prolific as normally was. He didn't really get any sniff at it. But saying that, there was two crosses, one from Coutinho, one from Digne, I think it was. And if he was an inch taller, he would have got to them. He got to one of them and put it wide, but he nearly got to another one sliding in at the back post. And I think it was more so that Leeds' style of play curtailed him completely and more or less kind of pushed him out of the game, because we weren't going long through the middle. We were going into that intermediate part just in the edge of the attacking third, and allowing our fullbacks to get up the wings, and then we were crossing the ball back towards the penalty spot. Now, Watkins should be a bit more alive to that. And you mentioned that there was times when balls were coming into the area where he was back on the 18-yard box. Maybe he was back a bit too far. But a lot of the times when I look at Watkins, you can see that he still needs to learn how to play that poacher's role as a striker. Now, getting back to whether and for me, I think that Steven Gerrard will realize that and will try and play him into form. But how much longer he does try and play him into form, or whether that's the right thing to do, I think only time will tell. But as I say, if Buendia isn't there, I think he starts with Watkins. But let's say that Buendia isn't there and he doesn't start with Watkins. What would be your prescription, I suppose, to kind of fix that midfield / number 10 role that we might have within the team? Would you bring in Sanson?
No, I'd probably play Chuck, to be honest. I think the second half, obviously, I don't think we were that great, but I think Chuck was probably the best of a bad bunch, in terms of, he tried to do stuff, he tried to get on the ball, he tried to make things happen, but he was, Buendia had gone off, Coutinho was sort of waning a little bit and then went off, and he didn't really have any players there who could play that sort of 1-2 type football, which is what he was trying to do, because he was trying to get the ball on the left, he was trying to come back inside, use his body to shield the player away, and then try and play 1-2s at the edge of the box with players. And he had Ashley Young and players like that who are not really, that's not really their game. They don't play that type of football. And I don't think Watkins that's his type of game as well, or it isn't yet anyway. So that's why I think maybe Ings might play, because he is more of a link striker. He can play that role where he can play with those number 10s, play 1-2s, drop off, and he's probably a better pure footballer, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. But I think against Newcastle, if we were playing a better team, then I would play Sanson. But I think we're playing Newcastle, we need to impose ourselves in the game. And that's probably also the reason why I think Ings might play, is because I think only if Buendia and Coutinho are both fit. If I completely agree, I think if Buendia is not fit, then Watkins plays, definitely. But I think if Buendia and Coutinho are fit, John Joe Shelby can be got out. I think them two as number 10s in and around him can cause mayhem, and will have the opportunity to turn and sort of slot balls in. And I think in that situation, I think you're probably better off playing Ings than Watkins. I think against Leeds, I would have always played Watkins just because of his running against a team that runs so hard and leaves gaps in behind. I think with Newcastle, I don't think they'll do that, but I think you need to be a bit more clever with your play in and around the box, and I think that's why I think Ings might play. But I guess we'll see. It's a tough one. If Buendia is not fit, I think Chuck will play. But who am I to know? I guess we'll see. It's unfortunate. I think Sanson's played really well when he's played, and I think he's done well, and he deserves a slot in the team. He's just he's got Jacob Ramsey to contend with. He's got McGinn, and then Louise is obviously playing number 6 role, so Sanson's not going to play that role. So I guess we'll see. But I think Chuck probably.
And I think the question there, Omar, is do we continue to persist with a 6? Because, there's been a lot of threads that you would have seen on Twitter, and there's been a lot of tactical and analytical breakdown, I suppose, of how our tactics have been. And like, we were just so wide open in midfield. Is there a point in playing a 6 within this system if we're going to be that wide open, or do we just play, or do we go more flat across the middle? And this has to be something that Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale are actually looking at, because if we're not playing a 6 there, and there was a couple of people that were pretty critical of Douglas Luiz and his positioning, and they have been, I suppose, really since the turn of the year. And look, that's, everybody will have their own opinion on that. I personally think Douglas Luiz has been okay. I think he's been fine. But I think if maybe you're looking to go 3 across the middle and you do have a Ramsey, McGinn, do you bring in a Sanson there and just basically have 3 people just, I suppose, getting in around the feet of Joelinton, Shelby, Guimaraes, like you said, and not letting them do anything at all with the ball whenever the ball comes there, as opposed to dropping McGinn and Jacob Ramsey, like we have been dropping McGinn and Jacob Ramsey into almost the full back positions to cover for them when they do go forward. So it's going to be interesting, because, like, once again, you mentioned at the very top of the show, Omar, that Leeds are a difficult proposition because they play so differently to anybody within the whole league, and they're almost like tactically, they're so tactically fluid that they're going to pick up whatever space you leave them. Whereas Newcastle may not be that way. So it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see. But nothing would surprise me within that midfield three, and within the 2 10s. Should Buendia be out, I think there could be a big shuffle of the pack there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is. It's been highlighted, hasn't it, a few times now, the weaknesses with the way that we play our midfield and the way that they cover the fullbacks, and the gaps that leaves. Louise has been isolated a little bit, which I mean, with Louise, I think he was really good when Gerrard first came in, playing as an 8, and he's had some really good games as a 6. But I think the last couple of games he's been poor. But he has been isolated a little bit. He's sort of there to fend for himself. And it's a difficult job, and that's not his skill set. We know the reason he's playing that number 6 is because we want him to start our attacks, and that's what he's good at. But again, you still need to see a little bit more from him in terms of against Leeds first half, especially when the centre backs were being pushed out wide because of the runs, and our fullbacks were quite high. You'd expect Luiz to tuck in a centre back there and then sort of pick up the gaps, and he wasn't quite doing that. So I don't know. I don't know. With that shape, Gerrard hasn't changed it yet, has he? He's kept faith with that exact midfield shape and the way that we're playing. Will he change it? I'm not too sure. You could have McGinn playing that kind of role as well, like the deepest lying centre midfielder. He's played that before, and he's got that range of passing as well. But again, he does tend to go a little bit too long, too early sometimes as well. So maybe that's what's stopping Gerrard putting him in that position. Sanson, I've never seen him play that position. Maybe he can play that position. I'm just assuming that he only plays number 8, but maybe he could do the job there. But
predominantly
yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure. I think if we carry on being wide open in midfield, which we have been, and we've conceded a lot of goals and we made a lot of mistakes because of that very reason, I think, then he'll have to change it. We can't carry on playing in that way and continue to ship goals like we have done. There needs to be a change eventually, especially in these games coming up. Where you'd expect us to pick up a fair few points in these games, and if we're still shipping goals and we're still struggling, then you have to change it.
You know what? For me, I think whoever is in that midfield, I think there needs to be an appointed leader in there. And this is me. I try to stay out of the intangibles of, maybe personalities when on the field and stuff like that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because as we move back through the field, through the positions, we will talk about it again in a moment. But I think whoever is going to be in that midfield, I think somebody needs to take their duties by the scruff of the neck there, I think, really. I would have expected it would be John McGinn, considering he was vice captain. And maybe I think, and I'm going to contradict what I said a moment ago about who would probably play in that 10 position if Buendia wasn't there, but I think a lot of fans would maybe like to see McGinn push forward into that 10 role, because what it would do was it would allow him to probably survey the field a little bit more. Now, would he be best utilized out there, considering he's got the engine of 2 trains? He can keep going forever and ever and ever. He's fantastic. But if you were to bring in a Sanson, play Sanson, Louise, Ramsey, push McGinn a small bit further forward like he plays for Scotland, and then maybe have him there as that intermediary voice between Mings and the strikers. I personally believe at times that there needs to be somebody in there that's maybe a small bit more vocal. It's been said time and time again, when there was nobody within the stadia, that you could just hear Mings. It was Mings' bellowing voice that you could hear around there. Everybody else was really quiet. And potentially that's why the likes of Watkins aren't firing. That's why the midfield maybe are open at times. And I know we are professional footballers and somebody should be able to step up to the mantle. But the thing with being a professional footballer is that the reason people make it to the top is because they do what they're told. So if you're continue doing what you're told and focusing on what you're doing as being part of a cog within the wheel, maybe somebody needs to be told that, listen, you've got the opportunity to kind of call the plays out there and maybe make alterations out there, but relay it back to the line as well. I don't know. I'm going wildly off topic there.
No, that's an interesting point. I think McGinn's played that. He plays that sort of number 10 position for Scotland, doesn't he? And yes, obviously performed really well there. So it is an option, and then that would allow Sanson, Ramsey to play together as well. Who again, Sanson we talked about earlier. I think it's not like he doesn't deserve to be in the team. I think he's played well when he's played, and he brings a different kind of skill set as well, I think, on the ball compared to those two. So I don't know. Yeah, so it's a good shout. I prefer to see Ashley Young playing number 10, to be honest, which was what we've done in the past. Although I think that's where Gerrard sees him at. But yeah, I guess we'll see. And then obviously we've got the Mings debacle as well, and that debate going on, which I don't know if we want to cover or not.
And that's where we're going to land next. Is when I moved back and I was talking about maybe leadership and intangibles and things like that. For me, Tyrone Mings is still the captain of this team. Yes, some clearances maybe don't go exactly where he wants them to go. You've seen the statistic about him giving away being responsible for more goals than any other defender. I think that's all grand. That's all based in fact, and everything is there. But at the end of the day, what we've just said there is that, there needs to be captain somewhere, and somebody needs to be the vocal person on the field. And that is Tyrone Mings. And until that changes, nothing changes from my point of view with regards to captain within the team and the leader within the team. And for that very reason, I think Tyrone Mings, I like, people are talking about potentially bringing Callum Chambers and Courtney House. I don't think that should happen at all. I think you start Tyrone Mings again and you play him beside Chambers, or beside House, whoever is there, because the drop off, the partnership piece, I think, is what I mean here, between the goalkeeper and 2 centre halves. If you change those 2 centre halves, and you bring in House, who's played limited time with Emi Martinez behind him, and you bring in Chambers, who has played limited time with Emi Martinez behind him, albeit for a completely different team. That's going to completely mess up the dynamic as well. So for me,
no, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. I think we know, you've seen the stats. You talk about the facts and stats. You know, you look at the mistakes, but you also look at the stats without Mings in the team.
Yeah,
he's a massive player. And this debate, it seems like you can only be one way or the other. You have to defend everything Mings does, or you have to criticize everything Mings does. And I think that game was a good summary of that. He did some brilliant things in that game defensively against Leeds, but he did some awful things as well. And it's just one of those games. 9 times out of 10, he will be fantastic for us and will be an important player. It'll just be the odd occasion where he makes a mistake and he gets highlighted. And I think the position he's in as being our, you know, the main player who's either attacking their attacker, and Konza tends to be the one sweeping up. He's going to be the one. He's going to be the focal point, making the mistakes. That's going to lead to something, because that's the way. Plus, we play through him as well. He's the one who brings the ball forward, and he's the one who makes the passes forward. Konza doesn't do that. So if there is going to be a misplaced pass or whatever, then it's going to be him. So, and also don't think he's been helped by the midfield as well. You know, we're last year, the reason why we were so good last year was because we played with 2 number 6s for the main part of the season, and it meant more protection for the defense. So they weren't bombarded with attackers running at them, the keeper with shots going at him. That's why we kept so many clean sheets. Whereas this season, we've been a bit of a mess. There's been good games, there's been bad games, but overall been a bit of a mess in midfield. And that means that the defenders are going to be forced to, it's a numbers game, isn't it? The more chances they have to make a mistake, they are going to make a mistake. It's just a simple thing. Whereas if you are protecting them, you're doing your job, and they're not being faced as many times at the edge of the box or in their box or whatever, then you're not going to get as many goals conceded. You're not going to have many mistakes being made. So it's a combination of things. Mings definitely can do better. I thought it was a really poor performance from him on Wednesday, but it doesn't mean that he's a poor player. It just means he's had a bad game.
100%.
Konza had just as a bad game. It just, he wasn't involved in the goals. He had a poor game. He got sent off. He made mistakes. It's just one of those things. There wasn't many players. There was maybe 2 or 3 players who had good games on Wednesday overall. The rest were pretty average or below average. So it's just one of those games. And you take Mings out of the game on Sunday, then you almost guarantee we're going to lose or struggle at least. If you play him on Sunday, I'm pretty sure he's going to be one of our best players. It's just the way it works. He's had a bad game. He very rarely has 2 bad games in the trot.
Yeah. It's interesting as well that, once again, we go back to what you said, the very, very opening line, I think it was, that Leeds are a difficult proposition. They play so differently to anybody else. And I know that I'm probably falling foul of mythologicalizing, not even a word, but you guys, you know what I mean? Making this Leeds team to be this all-conquering genie in a bottle that can solve any situation, yet they're lingering at the bottom of the Premier League. But they are just a different team to game plan for. And they will find any space in behind your fullbacks. And this Aston Villa team pushed their fullbacks as far forward as any other team in this league. So when you are exposed to that level, things like that can happen. Now, granted that the goals that we conceded were when we were back and we had set ourselves, albeit Cash wasn't. I think for two of the goals, when specifically the 2 Dan James goals, I think Cash was so far up the field that he found it difficult to get back into position. That's not a negative on him, because he was doing his job up there. Why wasn't somebody filling in the right back role for him, if that's what we are going to do with our midfielders? So I think if you were to really go around, you could apportion blame in 2 or 3 different ways. But the last person standing under the ball for the Dan James headed goal was Tyrone Mings, and the person who didn't get his clearance, another 5 foot further away from the goals, was Tyrone Mings. And that's going to be what people are going to remember. And as you said, yes, you can have a poor game, but it doesn't make you a poor player. And I think that's something that kind of wanted to get out of this podcast, because there will be times when Mings will have imperious games for us. And 30 seconds before the 3rd goal went in, he had a great off the line clearance, where they even checked it to see it was a handball, and it wasn't. They didn't square in the face, but little things like that. He does the good. Sometimes he does the bad, and you got to take that with him. We've got no transfer window. We don't really have an awful lot of options unless you want to bring 16, 17-year-olds into the squad and into the team. Tyrone Mings is an England international. A lot of people see a lot of good things about him. We watch him more, and yes, we do see some of these risks that he does have, and that's fine. You just got to live with it. But as long as he comes back stronger and maybe, irons those out of his game over the course of the rest of the season, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you watch the game, you talk about Leeds there, and we're not saying they're the most amazing team in the world. It's just that they're difficult to play against, and they make it hard for you. Likewise, you can see why they're struggling, because they leave so many gaps. And if we were a little bit better, maybe with our final ball in certain situations, then maybe we would have scored more, and maybe we shouldn't have gone toe to toe, or maybe we need to be a bit cuter, and when we're 3-1 up, and try and settle down a little bit. And there's all things you can work on. But you can see why they score goals, why they make it difficult teams. Plus, they're playing decent now, and they're not as bad as they were early on in the season. And on Mings, I think the second goal, I watched the second goal back. I think he can do better in terms of jumping early, but it's the ball that's looping over his head. And if you watch it again, he's pushed Dan James out of the way, so he's going to just head it calmly away, which is the way he likes to play. But then Buendia comes rushing in and pushes James back into the direction of the ball. So it's one of those, he could maybe jump earlier and take control of the situation, but at the same time, he sort of thought, I'm keeping James at arm's length here, and I'm just going to head it over the bar. And the clearance is one of those things. You're right. He saved it off the line just before that, and you also amazing header of the back post to clear it when the Leeds player was free as well at the same time. So you take the rough with the smooth, and he needs to do better. I'm not saying he doesn't need to do better, but for now, he's still one of our most important players.
Absolutely,
and needs to play every game.
Yeah, and he's going to be our captain, and I think he's worthy of that position. Omar, I'll ask you for your prediction in a moment, but what is the one thing Aston Villa have to do if they're going to win this game at the weekend?
I think take control of the ball. I think that's the main thing. Try and impose yourself in the game. I think the mistake we made against Leeds is we played to their style. We played to their tempo, and I think we need to play to our tempo. What I've seen from Newcastle since the last few games is they are pressing a lot more. They're trying to hurry teams up a lot more, which is not something that we've ever associated with them, especially under Bruce. So even the early part of Howe. So I think they'll try and make it hard for us, but I don't think they have the quality that we do. So we should be able to play around them and try and impose ourselves in the game. And I think that's key for us is just to take control of the game. That's the main thing I want to see from us. And it would be nice to have a good full 90-minute performance rather than these 20-30-minute spells that we're having at the moment.
Yeah, I'm similar to you. I think more so we need to take control of the game further up the field. I think we need to not rely on counter-attacking, although this team is built for counter-attacking, specifically with Coutinho playing in that half space. There, just at the edge of the center circle, it's like he's so dangerous there, and long may that continue. But I think we have to know as well that yes, if we get the ball up there quickly, let's keep it up there. Let's see if we can work something around the box. Let's try and get a penalty. I like Aston Villa Football Club do not know how to play for a penalty at all. And for me, it's a huge failing, because what we tend to see is Matty Cash gets up there, busts his absolute guts to get up there, gets up there and crosses it for the sake of it, then has to turn around and bust his guts to get back. Whereas, if Matty Cash, if they pass it around a small bit, maybe try and make that little run, now that we've got Coutinho, Buendia in there, who can trade these 5-6 yard passes to people, in the short windows, get in there, get somebody to have a tug at your jersey, go down, win a penalty. It's not like we're blessed with scoring brilliant goals, and there won't be games where we will score 3 goals every game like we did against Leeds. We're going to rely on a sneakily won penalty or a craftily won penalty from that point of view of, nothing was on. Buendia gets in there, someone has a tug on his shoulder, he goes down, and next thing referee points to the spot, VAR agrees. Watkins slats it away, or whoever takes the penalty slats it away, and we wheel away with a 1-0 win. If we've got another 10 of those by the end of the season, we'd all be absolutely delighted. So, I think a bit more intelligence up there and knowing how to play in that final third, as opposed to being very kind of, it's very kind of 1990s British football kind of, and it was under Dean Smith as well. It was, once you get up there, we have to have a shot as soon as possible, and that we don't need to do that at times. And I liked it against Leeds. At times, what we did is we were working the ball in along the end line, crossing it back towards the penalty area. If I see Luke crosses to the back post again, I think I've said it before, I think I'm going to pull my hair out, because we're just not built that way. But when we get the ball back to the penalty area, we've got smaller men who can come in and, as I say, find those gaps like Coutinho did, score that goal. So for me, what Villa need to do, if they need to take control and they need to spend more time with Newcastle hemmed back and pushed back, and we can't rely on the counter-attack.
No, agree. agree. Yeah, definitely.
What's your prediction, Omar?
Well, I did our pod last night and I said 2-1, so I'm going to stick with that 2-1.
I'm going to go with a clean sheet. I'm going to
Nice.
be ballsy and I'm going to clean sheet.
Nice.
I'm going to say Aston Villa 2-0. If Coutinho starts, I'm going to say Aston Villa 2-0. If Coutinho doesn't start, I'm going to say Aston Villa 1-0. And I have no idea who's going to score.
Nice.
That's what I'm going to go with.
Confident. I like it. It'd be nice to get a clean sheet, to be honest. It seems to be a while.
Yeah. I just think,
even though actually the game before we got against Everton, we got a clean sheet, but it just seems so long ago now.
I think everybody will it'll be like a heightened sense of reality within that defense and within midfield that, listen, lads, we've conceded 3 here and we didn't win a game. We were 3-1 up. This is on us. And I just think that there'll be kind of a backs to the wall kind of collective kind of improvement there as well. So and I think there'll have to be. I think there absolutely will have to be. But here's hoping for a win at the weekend on Sunday. I can't remember what time is the game on Sunday. Is it
2:00?
It's the 2:00 game. Yes, it is. It's the 2:00 game. So yeah, as I said, Villa go to a resurgent Newcastle United team out of the relegation zone, and Villa also looking to pop themselves up into the top half of the table. We've been in 11th position. It seems like forever. At the moment, so looking to get up there, looking to break that 30-point barrier. I will say, being an Aston Villa fan, it's always nice to see 36, 37, 38 points rack up this early in the season. So sooner we can get to that number, then we can really look forward to catapulting up the table, and hopefully this is the start of it at the weekend. Just before we leave as well, guys, just to remind you, podcast partner for today is Boohoo Man. Using the code VillaView at checkout gets you an extra 10% off all Boohoo Man menswear. So use it early and use it often as well, guys. Thanks very much once again for having me here. Delighted to be able to step in Dan's absence. And thank you so much, Omar, for bringing your insights as well.
Always, mate.
And
good to chat, mate.
For chatting, exactly. So with that, as I say, we're going to look forward towards Newcastle win at the weekend. And all the 3 left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.